Hello and welcome to another day on Cornwall Pocket Farm, where I try and figure out how to live sustainably on 300 square metres in the city. It's the big tomato preparation at the moment. So that amazing sort of bed that's covered in brassicas that have all gone to flower, and the bees are absolutely loving it. But I need to get my tomatoes in. So unfortunately, I have to take that out. So the first job is to clear all that space, get all that out, chop it all up, and it goes into the chicken coop. They'll work it down into wonderful compost. Then I need to get some of the existing compost out of the chicken coop, dig that, move it onto the bed, and then it's about getting the marquee up. Oh, but first off, while I've got that bed clear, I need to get the structure created for the espaliers. I've got two small espalier pears at the back of that bed, which I put in last year, and I just did a very temporary sort of cross brace with a cane really, which I just sort of tied on just to get the structure started. But I really need to get a proper structure in there. So while that bed's clear, I'm going to get in there with my daughter, and we're going to put that structure up. After that, I need to get the marquee up, and the marquee last year, of course, took some damage. If you remember last year, it actually, the top broke through. We had Cyclone Halo. I think that was the one that took the top down. Then we had Cyclone Gabrielle, so that there's some damage. And so I need to do a bit of stitching there. Also, I can now report that polyester lining fabric is not UV resistant. So what has happened? I sort of did a little bit of reinforcement with some polyester lining when I made the sort of mesh tent that goes over the gazebo that the marquee's made out of. And I didn't think about the UV resistance, and of course a year being out in our sun, which is incredibly strong in New Zealand, it's just rotted. So I have to cut all that away, and then I'm actually going to use the cover, the ripped cover that was originally on that gazebo, which obviously is UV resilient fabric. I'm actually going to use that, cut bits out and use that to sort of reinforce it a bit. So it'll be a bit bodgy, and I'm just going to sort of hand stitch it on, and it'll be a bit like a sort of a, you know, modern day fisherman repairing the nets is how I'm sort of feeling about it. Anyway, so I've got to do that, and then I can get the cover on the marquee. Once that's done, then I can get all the seedlings into the marquee and plant up that bed. So it's quite a big job to get that bed sort of moving forward into summer, if you like, this year. Usually I do my beds sort of one small section at a time. So if you know, if you've been following my YouTube channel for a while, and I should say welcome to anybody that's new, and thank you if you've been following my channel for a while. But you'll know that what I do is I have four main beds in my kitchen garden. I have two shady beds, which are England and Germany, and then I have two sunny beds, which are France and Italy. And within those beds, I have three smaller beds. And those three smaller beds are named after towns in that country. So usually I just pick off a town and plant up a town at a time, and that's relatively easy, and I do that quite frequently. I just pick off a bed and plant that up. But with the tomato bed this year, the way that it's working, it means I have to plant up an entire country in one go. So it's going to be quite a big push to get that happening. But once it's all planted up and the marquee is up, that'll be great, because it'll just really look after itself then, and I can move on to other beds and do plant up towns, one town at a time. What happened? No, nothing happened. Just beautiful. Look at that. Full bloom. It's time time to tackle this bed. Such a shame because it's a beautiful sunny day and the bees are absolutely loving it. But I need to plant my tomatoes, so they have to come out now. Not quite sure how I'm going to tackle it, mind. I think I'll just start on the outside and work my way in. One might stay. It's a by the looks of it, it's a violet cauliflower that hasn't flowered yet, so that's staying. Some of the chard, like this, I will actually harvest the leaves and then wilt them down and put them in my freezer. It for hacking in. I will now take out the roots. Usually I will just snip things off at the base, but with the brassicas the roots are quite sort of gnarly, so I do actually pull those out. And also I want to get some compost on here today. So the next job is to basically, oh, and I've got one more Cavolo Nero. I don't know if you can see it. This is another one of my hero Cavolo Neros. The next job after that is literally just to clear all the weeds and all the stuff that's on the ground. Then we'll be putting the compost on, ready for the tomatoes to go in. So I am actually roping in the husband later on, the muscle, the bulldozer, to help me get the compost from out of the chicken coop for this bed. Taken all of the plants out. I've given it a light rake over and a little bit of a hoe as well, and now we're just putting the compost from the chicken coop on top, and then I'll smooth that down and probably just give it a really good water just to sort of tamp it in and really give it a good soak, although we are getting pretty frequent showers at the moment, so I might not do that. And then tomorrow we can get on with that support for the espalier tomorrow, and then of course I'll be putting the marquee on and planting in. Okay, so this is the structure that we built at the weekend. This of course is old Rimu, and I've used the technique that I've used all the way around the garden. I'll do you a bit of a close-up. So this is the structure. These are the two espaliered pears, and you can see it's got its original sort of cane support just to get that original structure in place. But what we will have from this structure is some wires coming across. So I think we'll have one wire coming across here, and then the second level to this will go up to here. And I'll probably only do 2 layers on here because it's quite high from down here on the pathway, because obviously the wall makes it raised from this part of the garden. So I don't want anything that's sort of too high. But this, I think, will just provide a little bit of sort of definition for the kitchen garden, make it into a sort of slightly different space as well. It'll make it a little bit mysterious in the summer, sort of peer through what's going on in there. And it also, of course, is an extra growing space. These plants here will get sun, obviously. They're at the back of the bed, and they're permanent structures, obviously. The annual veg in the garden I will move and change and things, but this will be a permanent sort of fence, if you like, that'll run along the back of the kitchen garden. I've got another espalier on the other side, on the back of France, and that one is an apple. And again, I've got to do that structure, but I will make that one when I clear, when I can get to it, essentially, because that bed is the most active bed at the moment. It's got my broad beans in, and it's sort of, there's a lot growing in there. So when that gets more into a change situation, we'll fight our way to the back and put up the structure like this. Anyway, I'll bring you in closer just to show you how I've created this, because I've used the same technique that I've used throughout the garden. What I've used here is what we call a waratah. They're also, I think, called fence stakes or that type of thing. But essentially, it's a really solid metal stake. These are a T shape. You can also get a Y shape. But I like the T shapes because they have holes down the center here. And because it's a T shape, you've got a right angle. And that means I can put some wood into this post, and then I screw through the holes into the wood. The reason I do that is because this wood is recycled wood out of the house. I think it's Rimu, but it's certainly not treated and wouldn't last long in the ground at all. So this way, what goes into the ground are these metal stakes, and they're pretty resilient. I mean, ones that I've had in the ground, 3 years, if you pull them out, they're a little bit rusty on the bottom, but they're not disintegrating in any way. They're very strong, and they're really stuck in the ground. So I always feel that, you know, if the wind sort of has a bit of a force on these structures, these are incredibly hard to get out. We bash them in, obviously, with a lump hammer, reasonably deep, but they're very hard to get out. If you ever need to get them out, I end up sort of digging down to try and loosen them, and then rocking and rocking and rocking and hauling, and they're quite hard to get out. So that makes it great because it's really quite a firm structure into the ground. And then, of course, what I build on top of them, I try and make sort of fairly robust. And with the bigger structures like Crystal Palace and the arches, I put cross bracing in, which just makes them sort of not move this way or this way, and they're quite strong. But this is what actually anchors it into the ground. And so far, it's worked really well. So every single structure we've got in this garden is done this way. Now the wood is quite high. On some of them, like Crystal Palace, the wood comes right to the ground. And what I've done is I've put in like a brick or a stone or a piece of tile or something that sits underneath the wood, if you like. And then the wood just comes down to sort of meet the soil. In some cases, the soil has sort of gone up a little bit against the post, but it doesn't really matter because that isn't the structural part of it. The stakes are holding them in, and the screws are basically holding the wood in place and holding it onto that stake. So yeah, it's working well for us, and I've used it everywhere, so it's sort of become a bit of a theme in the garden. I think when you're designing a garden, it's quite nice to use the same sort of materials again and again and sort of repeat a motif, if you like. So this type of structure has sort of become the structures in the garden. And so essentially the materials that we've got old concrete, like the wall, that type of thing. We've got the old wood from inside the house and these black metal stakes. That's another piece. And then apart from that, it tends to be navy blue for some of the bigger posts and things, and pale blue for the fence. So we sort of repeat that colour way, if you like, that colour way throughout the garden. But yeah, I find that if you stick to the same sort of colour motifs in the garden, it sort of brings it together more harmoniously. It also means that when you have to build something or make something, it's easier because you know, oh, well, I'm going to do it like that, or like that. And you can see the marquee is now up. Now, last year I had red bunting around it, which I've made with sort of some of the cover pieces. This year I didn't do that. I don't have the time, and it looked very pretty last year, but this year we're just going a bit more of a natural look, if you like. So it's up. And it's hopefully ready now to plant in. I should tell you, it's a very exciting week at our place. It's been madly busy the last few weeks. I mean, it started off with James Shaw coming to my garden and having all the media in my garden. That was really exciting. Then I got interviewed for Go Gardening magazine, so pictures and an interview in that, which will be really exciting. And apparently that's out. It's a free magazine that's out at sort of garden centres and Mitre 10 and all that sort of thing all around the country. Then, of course, there was the book launch, because the Secret Gardens of Aotearoa book is now on sale for Christmas, which that's really exciting. So we had the book launch, and that was heaps of fun with the wonderful Jane and Sophie, who authored the book, which is brilliant, and a bunch of other secret gardeners were there as well. So that was very exciting. And then this week, well, very exciting, tomorrow I'm getting my Christmas present delivered. So this year the husband and I decided that the Christmas present that we should give to each other is actually learning to play a musical instrument. I've always wanted to play the piano, and my husband really wants to learn to play the flute. So we looked on Trade Me, that's like eBay over here, and we found 2 instruments. His flute is already here, so he's already practicing, and mine arrives tomorrow. Oh, will it go through the gate? And then Thursday, my piece of my fence is coming down, and then Friday, the posh shed is being delivered and erected in the garden. So it's full on this week. Plus, I'm trying to get my marquee up and all of that. So madly racing around trying to do everything. But of course, normal life continues. Although don't look at the house. The cleaning has slipped. And I still need to continue to sow seeds and pot on and plant stuff out and all of the usual things, the baking, all of those things that I usually do have to carry on. So it's a mad week. But anyway, I'm just sowing some sweet peas to go up around the Big Ben, which is now over by where the shed will be. So when we've got the shed in place and hopefully painted it, it will be time to plant them out, because I want to get the sweet peas in, so maybe they'll flower in time for the wedding. This year is mad, isn't it? I mean, we've got a wedding at Christmas as well. So anyway, so I need to get those on, and of course I'm also getting some other vegetable seeds in. I want to start getting my sweet peas ready, and I'm doing them in the toilet rolls because it works so well with my other peas. So I'm going to do toilet rolls. I've got 12 of them, so I'm going to do 12 sweet pea toilet rolls, and then the remaining 6 in here I'm actually going to put in some, I've got some Paris Pickles. I thought I'd give that a go. Try and make some, what are they called? Oh, gherkins, like little gherkins. So yeah, so I want to try making some gherkins. So I thought I'd try and do them in the toilet rolls, and I've just filled my toilet rolls with compost. And the way that I find it's really easy to do it is, I found that the end of a milk bottle upside down, the neck of a milk bottle is exactly the right dimension to fit in these toilet rolls, which is perfect. So if you chop the bottom off the toilet roll, you can put it in and use it as a funnel, and then I just use a bit of a stick to sort of poke it down. Fills them really quickly, and it's yeah, much easier than trying to fill these up with compost sort of with a trowel. So that's the technique that I'm using now, and it's working really well, so I'm going to do it again, as I say, for these particular crops. With the sweet pea seeds, the packet said to soak them in some warm water, which I've done, but I mean it's only warm to start with, so it goes cold after that, so I'm not quite sure. It's supposed to be constantly warm water. I'm not quite sure how to achieve that. Anyway, I have soaked them in what started off as warm water, and also I have my Paris Pickles, cucumber Paris Pickles. I'm going to try those. Right, so, and I have my handy dibber. This thing is really handy. I mean, you could use a pencil, but I don't know where I got this from, but it's great. It's got little measurements on it as well, so it's got a small end and a big end. And of course I'll give them a good water now, and then just stick them in the conservatory and hope they germinate soon. Okay, well, most of it is planted out. Don't know if you can see through the mesh. Hopefully you can. I'll just put you inside. I've got to put in some carrots and some onions and a few other bits and pieces, and of course I need to put the strings up to the supports up at the top. But I'm going to do a new system this year, which I will show you in another video. But yeah, so pretty pleased with that. But I've got a lot more to do. The indoor conservatory tomatoes are now outside because the ones in the tub are pretty much doing as well as these ones are. The only difference is that, look, I have my first ripe tomato. How exciting is that? There's another one over there that's sort of unripe, but apart from that, they haven't got that many tomatoes on them, whereas the ones in the tub have a lot of tomatoes but not ripe. So these tomatoes went in at the same time as the conservatory tomatoes, and you can see they're much healthier. They're covered in flowers and they have trusses of fruit. If you can see there, they've got trusses of fruit developing. They're not ripe yet, but they're much healthier and producing more tomatoes and more robust. So they look, yeah, like they're going to do a lot more. So what I've discovered, I think, is that there really isn't any point in starting early tomatoes in the conservatory in pots. I might as well just put them out here on Park Square because they seem to be doing really well. So the posh shed is arriving. Woohoo! And being put together. So very exciting.
Bottom looks good.